How's it going, everybody? I'm Drifty from Driftwood Gaming. In this RPG Maker MV tutorial, we're going to take a look at DreamX's prefix and suffix affix plugin. So this is a really cool plugin. I just started using it. I just found out about it a couple days ago. Wanted to get this tutorial out sooner, but I didn't want to put out something that I didn't have a good grasp on. So now that I've got it kind of figured out, I want to run through the basics of this plugin. To start off, we're going to do a demonstration of basically what we're going to be making. So if it's something that interests you, you'll know right off the bat after a few minutes. So basically this plugin is going to let you add like Diablo style prefixes and suffixes to your items so that you can like customize them just by designing a specific item and just let random things happen to it. But it's different from Yanfly's item core, but this plugin is also very dependent on Yanfly's item core, so you will need Yanfly's item core plugin to make this work. Also, a link to this plugin will be in the description of this video to DreamX's post, where you can get the plugin right then and there, and any updates or more information on the plugin will be there. So links in the description for that. So onto the demonstration. We're going to get a sword. I took off the self switch to this plugin so we can get a few of them. Let's get 3 of them. Okay. So let's go ahead and equip our player. First of all, I'm going to clear everything he's wearing. So the item we got was we actually got one that procced none of them. So this is the item that I created, and it was just a simple sword, and it has 52 attack power, in this game strength. But it has a chance to proc other random prefixes and suffixes. Not guaranteed, but you can make it guaranteed. So we got 3 of them. They're all the same item in the database, but because of the note tags I'm using on them, they have a chance to proc other things. You can see this one. We got a hasty sword of Arcana, which actually added 14 speed because of the hasty prefix, and of Arcana added 19 to the magic attack power. And it also did the plus 19 right there. And we can see the next one, an omnipotent magic sword of the wizard, which actually procced a good one because these are both MP procs. So you can have prefixes and suffixes that do the same thing, but they'll have different names and stuff or whatever. So this one, the omnipotent, is adding MP, magic is adding MP, and of the wizard is also adding MP. So this sword is giving its natural 50 attack power, but adding a bunch of magic points because of its. Let's get a few more random procs to see some of the stuff we can get. Let's get 3 more, 2, 3. Let's see what swords we got out of here. So this time we got a Disciple Sword, which just adds 26 to willpower or magic defense. We also got another one with no proc on it, nothing. And we got an Eager Wizard's Charming Sword of Hardiness. So this is adding 355 HP because of hardiness suffix. It's getting 54 MP because of the wizard's prefix. It's getting 50 strength from its normal 50 attack power. And it's getting 22 speed from Eager, and it's getting plus 7 because it's a charming sword. So you can really go all out with what you put on your prefixes and suffixes, but it's a little confusing at first on how to make it all work together. Just looking at the plugin help file alone isn't really super clear. It's going to require some trial and error, some testing. So that's what I did all day today. I've been messing with this plugin, and I found several different methods to make it work. So the first method that I tried looked something like this. So before we get into the note tags, let's look at how we would set up our database. So you're going to put the plugin, I've got it at the bottom because I just added it. It seems to work fine. I haven't had any incompatibilities, but I've only had it in the project for 1 day. So we'll see how that goes. Also, to note, I'm using an older version of the MV. I'm using 1.5, the engine, but my project is a lower version. I think it's 1.4 or 1.3 point something. It's an older version, and I'm not updating this project to 1.5 yet until I've kind of verified that stuff's going to work right. Because it seems like stuff breaks when you update to new versions. So everything's running smoothly. I don't want it to mess up, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's still an older version project. In 1.5, I'm not sure how it works. I imagine it's the same. If not, it'll probably be updated by DreamX. So there's that to note. The parameters here, bonus parameter text. You can decide if you wanted to add the name of the thing it adds, as well as the plus percentage, or the plus, not percentage, the plus number of what was added, and you can remove those if you want. bonus parameter price multiplier. Now, when you get an item that's got suffixes, this plugin will automatically increase the price of that, depending on how much you want it to be increased by. So some things to be careful about this is if you get items that give a lot of HP, this number is going to be super high. So originally I thought, well, if it gives plus 10 strength, I thought the value of the item could go up 500. Sounds about right, but what about if it gives like 100 HP? The price of the item is going to be super crazy, so I'm going to go back to the default of 10. So items that add a lot of HP are also, or a lot of any stat. HP would be the stat you get the most of. So this doesn't take into account differences between strength or vitality or, like attack, defense, magic attack, or HP or MP. They're all the same to the plugin, and that's something I wish that wasn't that way. So you might want to even make this 0 to not affect the price, or you can make it 1 to 10, something small that it won't really affect the price so much that it makes it so that it's like a game-breaking bug. The player can get a few random items, sell them for a fortune, and then just buy everything else. Store-bought items don't seem to be affected by this plugin, but I think there's other versions where that is a thing, and it might be something you can do. I know more compatibility with Hime's plugins was put in. This is a really good plugin, guys. You should check it out. So we'll keep that the same. Item combination starting index. So this is to give there's plugin commands that you can use to change the icon even of the item. And it lets you blend icons together. Like it lets you take an old icon and a new icon and blend them together. But it has to start somewhere on your icon set.png. I've got, I think, like 3,000 or 4,000 icons. So starting default 6,000, I don't think anybody's got that many. As a matter of fact, if you have even over like 4,000 or 5,000 icons, you're going to start seeing black boxes when you do Yanfly's balloon icon pop-ups and other icon pop-ups plugins. They'll have problems if you have icons past a certain thousands number. If your icon set.png is too big, you'll have an issue. So you probably don't want to have 6,000 icons. 3,000 seems to be like a sweet spot. But anyway, just keep this at 6,000. It won't affect anything. Old note tags. This does add some, as it's added new functions that replace the old functions. DreamX has decided to leave some of the old functions in just to accommodate for people who have been using the plugin for a long time, which I think is really cool. So it doesn't make people have to go through the database again and update everything because the plugin was updated. So there are old note tag functions in here, but we're going to be looking at the new ones. So you can leave this the same right here. This is if using chances for prefix suffix. This is the default chance. So if you don't include a percentage, it will default to 10%. But you should always just manually include, so that's fine. So this is another thing you might not want to have. Always choose a prefix or a suffix, even if the chances for a prefix suffix items are 100%. Add one. We can see that this doesn't work with the new note tags. Because I've got percent chances that are 50% chance, 20% chance, and of course it doesn't add them. So I'm going to set this to false because it really doesn't work for me how I need it to work anyway, and I don't want it to work. I don't want items to always have a suffix or always have a prefix. So I'm going to set that to false, even though with the new note tags it doesn't add it even if you set it to true. So here's another thing, edit database for old note tags. If you want to change all of your old note tags to be automatically converted into new note tags for the plugin to read, you can also just keep your old note tags, set this to true, and it'll update it. So it's really, really cool how that was implemented. But anyway, that's the parameters. We're not going to read everything because it kind of gets convoluted and things aren't always presented in the help file as a need-to-know basis. Like right off the bat, they start you with the good information. But as you start going down, you start learning about suffixes and prefixes. But I wish the help file would say, these go under the items, these go under the weapons, these go under the, but it really depends. You can put these on the weapons or the armors. But basically, you just have to decide. And this isn't the first thing you're going to be doing, because in order to know what 5 to 8 or 11 is, you have to make them. So the first thing the help file should be talking about is passed down to here. No, this is some of the stuff you can do to, I recommend going through here and seeing what you can do. You can make your new item replace the weapon animation, the hit animation, the damage formula on items, not weapons and stuff. But like you could do tons of stuff with this, and all of these note tags are right here. Really, really good help file for that. But I wish this affix parameters was at the top. This right here should be at the top of the help file, right here at the bottom where it says affix parameters. So this note tag is what you're going to be putting in the database. Prefix, suffix, parameters, colon, and then the stat, and then from here to here, from here to here. So what this really reads out to is saying, if this is on a weapon or an armor, then when this is called with this note tag, suffixes or prefixes, that's the number you're going to use. So say in database ID number 11, I've got this code. Where is that? Come on, where's it at? See, it's a little messy. Needs to be a little bit. It's super helpful, and I love this plugin. Let me just get that right. So if we add this code in weapon number 11, right? Attack 5 to 10, defense -10 to 20. What this is going to do when we call it is add 5 to 10 to attack and add -10 to 20 defense, right, to that. So one thing to note is the second number always has to be higher than the first number, but you can use negative numbers. For example, I can't use 6 to 5 because that doesn't make sense, really. So it'd have to be add 5 to 6, right? Add -10 to 20. You could say add -25 to 20 because a -25 is still lower than a 20. Right? It's not absolute value, it's just real numbers. Okay, so anyway, we're getting a little off track. I think a lot of people learn by example, so I'm going to go ahead and look in the database now and show you, and maybe you can pick up what you didn't get from that if you didn't, by example. So let's look at my database. So right off the bat, I've got my prefix and suffixes. Now, keep in mind, like where it didn't say where you put these. So it took me a while to figure this out. But basically for weapon enchantments or augments or whatever, you want to put them in the weapons. For armor, you want to put them in armor, but there's a new note tag that lets you pull armor suffixes and prefixes and put them on weapons and vice versa. You can put weapon prefix suffixes on your armors. So it really doesn't matter anymore. So I just set them all up in weapons. So basically how it's going to work is you set up the name of the item to be what the prefix of the item is going to be. So in this case, I set a weapon called strong. Now this isn't a weapon. This is just a placeholder in the database that holds this note tag. So when I use this weapon, quote unquote weapon, called strong on icon on a database value of the weapons for 11, we're going to say prefix, suffix, parameters, attack 1 to 10. So when I call the sword to say prefixes on, this is the weapon you're going to be, this is the actual weapon, right? It has an animation, it has a weapon type, it has its own parameters, its price, its own traits, and all that stuff. But this is the note box that you use for defining what prefixes you put on and what suffixes you put on. Now there's multiple ways. It looks like, wow, what you got going on right there? It's a big jumbled mess, right? But it's very simple. Let's look at the suffixes first. So I've got all of my suffixes on the weapons database 411 to 450. So let's scroll down to 411 to 450. So here we go. So the suffix goes at the end. So it's a sword of strength, a sword of power. And I see a naming convention typo right there. Lowercase o. Okay. So this of strength suffix is going to have the same thing as the affix or the prefix, right? So it's just a note tag called prefix, suffix, parameters, and then the parameter you want, and then the range you want it to be. Now this is 411. Let's jump back to our sword. Our sword is calling from 411 to 450. So it's going to pick one of these enchantments because it's on one line. For each line is a possibility of a new enchantment. So this is going to say there's one chance to get a suffix on the item. And when you think of all these percentages, it's good to do, let's do this. It's good to do this probably right from the get-go. Come up with your own naming schema, like your own naming convention. There's several websites that can help you think of like synonyms for a word. So just Google synonym for hit point or synonym for health, and you'll come up with all kinds of different synonyms for it. And there's also name generators. I put out lots of resources on those. So use your own imagination as well as some Google help to come up with some items not really items, but names, right? So prefix and suffix names. So I made a little list of how I want it to work before I even did anything, before I put any note tags in. I set it up and I was like, okay, so for strength, I want to have 5 tiers. Or for all the stats, I want to have 5 tiers. That was the first thing I decided. How many different tiers? I'm going to do 5 tiers because we've got 8 parameters. And also this plugin, side tangent, can also do other things besides parameters, but I'm going to try to narrow it down because it can be convoluted to just parameters for this. So for strength, when I want to add 1 to 10 strength, I'm gonna say it's a strong. When I want to add 11 to 20, it's going to be powerful. If I want to add 21 to 30, it's going to be forceful, so on and so on. And I did the same thing for vitality, which is defense. This is attack, this is defense. So when I want to add 1 to 10 defense, I'm going to call it vital. 11 to 20 stout, and so forth and so on. And I made this for the prefixes, and I made one for the suffix, for the suffix. So they're both affixes, right? So the suffix goes after, the prefix goes before. So we could get a sword, a strong sword, but we could also get a strong sword of strength, or we could get a vital sword of eagerness. And how I wanted it to work is I wanted each tier of the prefixes to have a chance to proc once. So you'll never have a strong, vital sword. You could have a strong, stout sword. You could have a strong, stout, forceful, elegant, omnipotent sword. But you can never have a strong, willing sword, right? So it's basically, this is to limit how many possible prefixes you can have on an item. Because, let's jump back to the database real quick, a problem you might encounter. Before I set it up like this, I set it up like this. I set it up with, you know, my prefixes. Oops, what am I doing? It's using this. So I set it up my prefixes like this. Holy crap, right? A lot of prefixes. And we just do, what am I doing? / prefixes. Okay. Now this is not on a weapon, but I cut and pasted this off of the weapon to keep it as a placeholder. So I had this on the weapon. This is saying I have a 15% chance to get this enchantment. I have a 12% chance to get that enchantment, a 5% chance to get that. Now they're all low percent chance. But eventually someone's gonna get a weapon that's got like 30, 40, 50 enchantments on it. And it's gonna be so long of a piece of text that it just won't possibly fit. And it'll just not be how I want it to roll, right? So, because every line is its own chance to add a new enchantment. So, potentially, every line could be another enchantment added. And you can add as many as you want. And I thought, wow, well, there's a possibility of 40 prefixes on an item? I mean, it's low percent chance, but it could happen. That's not what I want. So I had to limit that. How did I limit that? On the sword, I set it up so that I have a 50% chance to get the tier 1, 11, 16, 21, 26, 30, which we go back to here and we see, actually it's right in the database, I'll have to see. 11 is right here, which is your 1 to 10 attack. 16 is your, so all of your 1 to 10 stats, all of your tier 1s has a chance to proc, half the time. And then 30% of the time, all of the tier 2s have a chance to proc, well, one of the tier 2s has a chance to proc. 20% of the time, one of the tier 3s. 10% of the time, one of the tier 4s, and then 1 out of 100, you'll get the tier 5 proc on the weapon. That's how I set it up. You can do it however you want, but you see how I did this. First, I set them all up using the prefix suffix parameters, saying this does this to that, this does this to that, and that's the format for it. Open the bracket, lowercase prefix, capital S on suffix, capital P on parameters, JavaScript camel case, the whole thing. It's one word, and then a colon. Space, capital letters on the stat you want to use, ATK for attack, DEF for defense, MAT for magic attack, MDF for magic defense, AGI for agility, LUK for luck. And there are other things you can do as well besides parameters. But then you don't do attack, Z, you don't do that, you do... or not a Z, attack, right? They call it tack. It's just a dash. You don't do the dash. You do this other line, which you hold shift and you press the button above your enter key or whatever. It's a straight line like that. And that's going to say, for specifying, I don't know why it's like that, but that's how it is. So 31 to 40, that's how it's set up to read. And that would add a random chance. If this procs on the percent chance, then it'll give 31 to 40 magic attack on that sword. So you can see there's a chance very low chance that all 5 of these will proc. Now, there's also there's one chance for a suffix to proc. Now, the reason why I made it this way is because, you know, prefixes stack well nice together, right? You could say a secure, stout sword, but what doesn't sound good is when you say a sword. Where are we at? 411. A sword of strength, of force, of brutality. That doesn't even sound right, you know? So in my opinion, only one suffix should be on a weapon. You could do it however you want. You can make your suffixes completely different. They don't have to say of this or of that. This is just what I did, and it's up to your own interpretation of how you want to go about creating that. So really, once you understand how it works, now you just figure out your own, you know, schema, your own naming scheme, and how you want it to set up. And this is how it works in my game. 50% chance tier 1 and so forth and so on, and only 1 chance at a suffix, but it's a good 50% chance. So the suffix, you have a much higher chance of getting of brutality. You know, the 5-tier one, the 5-star one on the suffix, but you can only have 1 suffix and only a 50% chance of that. So there's a 20% chance overall in this setup that you'll get a 5-tier suffix. So that's kind of cool. But there's only a 1% chance that you get a 5-tier prefix. But that's just to balance it out a little bit. And like I said, come up with your own names, your own schema, and set it up however you want. But that's basically how you do it. Inside your weapons, you have to basically use each database slot as a placeholder for a note tag. That's all it really needs is a note tag. You're just giving it a note tag with what you want this to do. And then on the sword, you can specify all of the other note tags that are in the help file. You can specify what prefixes you get, what suffixes you get. So with the setup that I have here, I've got a potential chance of getting a weapon that has its own base parameters plus up to 6 other enchantments. Each time randomly controlled by this percentage marker at the end right there. And it's pretty simple once you get that concept down. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else there is to talk about in this plugin. You could add other note tags in there to change the icons. Let's look at some of the note tags. You can replace the damage type so that if you're using, like this will even work for items, non-weapons, non-armors, just items. Like you can have it so that this potion you find, instead of healing for 50 HP, it's a stout potion of healing. And it actually heals for a different formula. Or it instead of healing for healing with healing element type, it could heal with fire element, right? And maybe you could use Yanfly's Element Absorb plugin, or you know, Element Core to do a special absorb on character. There's really a ton of possibilities you can do with this plugin. You could replace critical hits, replace the scope, so now an item that only targets one thing can target everything. It's really up to your imagination how far you want to go with this plugin. I went through the basic fundamentals of how it works. Hopefully you can discern how to use the plugin off of this tutorial. I've tried to make it as simple as I possibly can. The core concept, I'm going to reiterate on the whole thing really quickly, is you use placeholder weapons, which are not actually weapons, just to hold a note tag that does this one single note tag. Prefix, suffix, parameters. Now, whether this is a prefix or a suffix, it doesn't matter, because you call this this number, say powerful is just 12, on the weapon, the actual weapon. So you can have this powerful thing be called as a prefix and a suffix. You could keep this one thing and say powerful sword, powerful. But it just doesn't sound right. That's why I copy pasted the entire thing and just changed the naming schema a little bit so that it says of power instead of power. But you notice the note tag's the same. It's exactly the same. So it could be a powerful sword of power. And now it sounds a little more reasonable. So that's basically it. Use those as placeholders for that note tag. And then on the weapon itself, you call the number. So this is powerful, which is 12. So I don't type in powerful or anything. I just say 12, and then I would say, say I wanted this powerful to be guaranteed on this item. Well, I would do prefixes, ignore the other lines of code, and I would just do 12, 100%. Now, every time you get this sword, it's going to say powerful sword, plus whatever else you put on it. Hopefully that makes sense. Kind of simple now that you look at it from you know, a trial and error perspective. I tried several other methods. This seems pretty cool. I really like this plugin. I think you guys should check it out. It's hard at first, trust me, to just like, well, what? How do I work? But, you know, watch through this tutorial, see how I did it, and then make your own method of it in your own name. You will like this plugin. If you put a few hours of work into it, you have a really cool dynamic system to where you can find, and what's really cool is when you come up with a system like this, now that I've got this code set up like that, right, I can take this code, copy it, and paste it on every other weapon I want to have this potential, right? So we'll say maybe not the bronze weapons, or the iron weapons, but starting on the silver ones, they could all have those note tags, right? And you could change the % chances for each weapon. So a more rare sword will have a better chance of 5-star stuff. That's what I plan to do in my entire database. Hopefully I don't have compatibility issues, because that could be a lot of work for it. If I come up with any compatibility issues with this plugin, I will let you guys know. I'll do a PSA on it, letting you guys know. But so far, so good, guys. Like I said, I am using an older version of MV. This project, my engine's 1.5, but the project's an older version because it's been around for a few months now, half a year or so, a little more than that. But yeah, super cool plugin. Check it out, guys. Links in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy this tutorial, please subscribe to the channel. We'll take a look at some random variants we get right here and right now before we close out of this tutorial. See what we get. Let's get 5 swords. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see what we get. Remember to like this video if you did enjoy it and you would like to see more tutorials like it. Thank you. Big shout out to all my Patreon backers. I love you guys. Thank you for all your support on Patreon. So out of these 5 swords, we got one that got nothing, right? Because that could happen. Unless you don't want it to, change it up. Give something 100% and that'll never happen. But look at all the different things we got just from a simple sword. We got a hasty, speedy sword. We got an arcane, speedy sword of conjuring, an enchanting, resolute sword, tempting, willing sword of the wizard. And so all of this from a simple sword. Really, really cool. It's going to give a lot of replayability to your dungeon crawler type games. You guys are great. Thank you so much for watching. That's going to do it for this tutorial. I love you guys. We'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.